run.
Good evening. We're going to begin the council work session for Monday, April 6, 2020. If you would join me for the pledge and a moment of silence. I pledge allegiance
to the flag
of the United
States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. So good evening. Before we get started with the council work session for this evening, I'd like to provide you with an overview of the way the meeting is going to be conducted. This is probably the first official time that we'll be conducting a meeting virtually like this due to the ongoing COVID-19 pandemic and in interest with keeping in compliance with both federal and state enacted mandates for social distancing. Plum Council is going to begin holding the monthly work session and the council voting meetings virtually over the internet. Now, these meetings will be facilitated leveraging the existing Microsoft Office 365 Teams virtual meeting technology, which is a chat-based collaboration tool that provides global, remote, and dispersed teams with the ability to work together and share information via a common space. Our technology and multimedia personnel have also, for the time being, enabled the meetings to be live streamed via the Boro YouTube channel. And as always, residents will continue to be able to watch the meetings live on Comcast Channel 19 or Verizon Fios Channel 29. Residents that desire to address council during the public comment portions of the agenda on an agenda or non-agenda item may submit their comment using the online form located on the Boro website. While we prefer the face-to-face meetings with the public, we recognize that over the last few weeks, the scale of this pandemic has grown dramatically, forcing us to come up with innovative solutions that ensure continuity of government. We expect to use this format going forward, at least until the social distancing restrictions are lifted. And as you can see on this slide, it actually provides the links to both the live stream that's being performed over YouTube, and also the link for residents to provide comments on either agenda or non-agenda items. And that can also be accessed via the Plum Boro website. As you can see here, the Plum Boro website has a section that's titled Update on the April Council Work Session. If you click on that link, you'll see a description of what we're doing to host this meeting virtually, and it also provides a link that you can go to in order to submit your public comment. The public comment form is very simple to follow. You would just select whether your comment is for the April 6th work session or the April 13th voting meeting, whether it's a non-agenda item or an agenda item, and then you can put your public comment in, including your name, phone number, email, and address. And once you submit that, that information will come to us immediately, and we'll be able to discuss your particular public comment when it's that time on the agenda to deal with comments from the public. So at this time, I'd like to just give a brief overview of our agenda this evening. I've essentially concluded the opening comments and provided some background on the conduct of this virtual meeting. And so at this time, I'd like to turn it over to Mike Thomas, the Borough Manager, who's going to cover the work session items for the agenda.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Odom. Okay, the first item this evening is the planning and economic development items for proposal for the agenda. We have three planning and economic development items. All three are simple subdivisions. They are in order: the Bean Consolidation Plan, the Corcoran Consolidation Plan, and the Benora Consolidation Plan. All three of these items were accepted as complete as required by the ordinance last month, being that they are simple subdivisions. They are they're not required to go through the planning commission. They're just required for a initial internal review by the staff as well as the borough engineer. Item number 1 is the bean lot consolidation plan. The applicant is requesting permission to consolidate 2 lots into 1 lot for the purpose of creating a larger 4.2 acre lot to support planned improvements. The property is located at 847 Center Road and is zoned SR single family residential. As a simple subdivision, it only requires review by the recommendation by the staff and engineers, and the recommendation is to approve the application contingent upon the final approval of the borough engineer. So would that would be appropriate for council to place on the agenda?
Yes, Mike, before we open it up for comment from the participants, I did want to mention that we have the entirety of council present, both myself, Dave Vento, Dan Hadley, Ryan Delaney, Paul Dern, Mike Pastor, Mike Doyle, and we have Mayor Harry Slagle here with us as well this evening. I know it's difficult to see all the participants via the live stream, but I did want to indicate that all of those individuals are present in the meeting this evening. So with that being said, on the first item for planning and economic development that was discussed by Mr. Thomas, are there any comments or questions?
Nope, looks good.
I have nothing. I'm good with them.
Okay, agenda item. Next topic.
Okay, item number 2 is the Corcoran consolidation plan. This applicant is requesting permission to consolidate 2 lots into one for the purpose of creating a 1.74 acre lot to refinance the entire property. Property is located at 3860 New Texas Road and is zoned single family residential. Again, this is a simple subdivision, and the recommendation is to approve the application contingent upon final approval of the borough engineer.
Comments?
I don't have any.
Any other discussion?
Nope. Good on that one too.
Agenda item. Next topic.
Item number 3 is the Bonura consolidation plan. The applicant is requesting permission to consolidate 2 lots into one for the purpose of creating a larger 1.7 acre lot to permit an addition to the rear of the existing building. Property is located at 7942 Salzburg Road and is zoned GC General Commercial. The recommendation, this is also a simple subdivision, and the recommendation is to approve the application contingent upon the final approval of the borough engineer.
Discussion.
I have a question. I don't know who is Bob Meital or anybody from his office online?
I don't believe Bob is online.
Yes, I am. I'm here, Dave.
Oh, Bob is. I'm sorry. I apologize.
I'm sorry, Bob. Just answer one simple question. I hope it's simple. The Bonura consolidation from the pictures that were shown to us with his lot lines included. Now I've made my concerns known about him being online, close to the creek.
I don't.
And I understand what Mr. Bonura is saying. He's able to still build something that he's sure it's going to be good. But the question isn't so much for this particular consolidation plan as it is for, it looks like he's, if I'm not mistaken, 2 lots that are side by side are being consolidated into one, correct?
No, Dave, he owns a parcel of ground on the other side of the stream behind the lots. So
okay.
What he is doing with this act is to remove the lot line between the two. Therefore, he has a much larger rear yard. I'll bet it's on the other side of the stream. If you look there and see what is outlined in blue,
Yes.
okay, that is the final piece what that lot would look like. If you notice the light line, the white line that kind of runs along the stream, that is the line that is being eliminated.
Okay, but I guess I have to talk about this particular one though, because it's the only one in front of me. How does putting a property on that's across the stream allow it to be far enough from the stream to not need a variance? I don't get that.
Well, he is far enough away from the stream. However, the rear lot line in that district is, I believe, 30 feet, which his addition would encroach upon that. That is the reason why he is eliminating the line between the two lots. If you go back to the previous slide,
Yes, I'm there.
you will notice that there is, if you go up Salzburg Road a little bit, you'll see that there is an alleyway that still gets to the rear of the property, and that is not impacted by the stream. In other words, it's on land.
Yes.
That is the purpose of why he's doing this.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Mhm.
Any other discussion on this topic? Okay, agenda item.
Okay, the next item would be the under public safety. Be under public safety, which is a discussion of a contractual agreement, which will take place in an executive session immediately following this meeting. The next item is the discussion regarding the Borough HAPS events, and I'm going to put up a slide here. I hope everybody can see it. These were the events that were originally scheduled for April. We don't have any events scheduled in May. The next event would not be until the end of June, and we're hoping to be back on track by then. But for the May events, the Easter egg hunt or the extravaganza was to have been held on Saturday, April 4th. We have postponed that to next Saturday, April 11th, and we're actually going to do it as a drive-through up at the Public Works facility so that we can still pass out things to the kids. They're going to be done in bags. We have the Easter Bunny. We have a nice little event. We're trying to plan as nice an event we can given the restrictions, so everybody will stay in their cars. The kids fishing, trout fishing that originally was scheduled for April 11th. At this point, we are just postponing, as well as cleanup day that was scheduled for April 18th. We are still hoping to hold that at a later date if we can. That's why we haven't canceled either of those events at this point. We still think we can hold them later on should things improve. And the Holiday Park 5K color run has been canceled. I do believe, however, that they're planning on holding that later on in the fall. So this doesn't require council action or doesn't need to be on the agenda. I just wanted to make sure that all of council was aware of the changes to the Borough HAPS events for the coming month or two.
No, that's great, Mike. I think what we need to do is update the website on the drive-through extravaganza. It still says 4/6. We just need to make sure it's moved to April 11th.
I will certainly do that. We did put out a Facebook notice because we asked everybody to sign up, and there's a JOT form, I believe. Well, not believe, but there is a JOT form on the website for people to sign up. I know we have over 470 of 500 available spots already signed up.
Okay.
Mike, this is Jason. I'm sorry to interrupt. We are full. We hit the number today.
Oh, okay. We are full.
That's great news. That's great news to be full. I'm so glad you guys were able to rethink something and put something together for the peoples. They need something to look forward to. I love the idea of a drive-through event at the Public Works there. I like it. I really do.
One other thing, if I can, the Savvy Citizen is still posting, I believe it's the cleanup date for the same time, same date. I'm not sure about the fishing, but if you could have that taken out of there, or however you got to do it, but it's still saying the cleanup's going forward like it's supposed to be.
Well, yeah, we can certainly do that.
Either just put on there postponed or something, or canceled till later, something like that.
Certainly.
Thank you.
Okay. There are no Finance Committee items this month. And then finally, there are two roads, equipment, and grounds items. The first one is the Ralph Seipel Street issue. And I'm going to try and put that that visual back up on the screen. I hope everybody can see this. Can everybody see that?
Yes.
Okay, so this is Ralph and Seipel Streets along Leechburg. The yellow arrow obviously would identify approximately where we would have to obtain additional right-of-way and cut back the road, the hillsides there, to gain that appropriate line of sight for Seipel Street. Obviously, we cannot gain enough line of sight for Ralph Street, so the options for Ralph Street would be to abandon it or to make it one way. If you did make it one way, you can. There's two homes that access their homes via Ralph Street, but if you look in the at the far right of the photo, some of the pictures actually cropped off, but you can actually go up towards the top of the page there under the turnpike, and then make a left back down on the Seipel and head back out again. But we need to make a decision about whether or not we're going to move forward with this project as a 2020 project. And again, as I noted in previous reports, although it is not the ideal sight distance from Seipel, we have 0 reported accidents at that intersection. So I just need to know from council whether or not we are to move forward with this project or not for 2020, or if you would like to postpone it, given everything that has happened this year with, or in the past 12 months anyway, with the flooding and now this pandemic. I need some direction, because I think the homeowners would like to know if we plan on doing this project this year.
Well, Mike, could you, is it possible to make it one way now and hold off on doing the other further construction until next year? Because I think even if and when we get back on board here within the next month or so, it's going to greatly limit the time we have left to do those types of projects, during the good weather when we'd want to be able to grade their yards and everything for them.
Yes, you can certainly do that if you want to. You just sort of make it one way now. We'd have to go. There's a process that we'd have to go through to do that. But I'd like to tell them. I think I'd like to be able to tell them that we're going to make it one way in 2020 with the hopes of, with the intention of improving the line of sight issue from Seipel in the 2021 budget.
I think that would work for me.
Now, if we do the work to make the sight line for Seipel Street, do we have to abandon Ralph Street? Does that have to be a one way then? If we fix it?
Well, Seipel Street already doesn't have the ideal amount of sight distance looking down the street to your left, Will, from Seipel. So
I know.
Ralph Street certainly has less.
Okay, but I'm saying, if we fix it, does Ralph Street gonna end up either abandoned or one way anyhow if we fix it?
That would be the recommendation, yes.
Okay, because my thing is, I know in the email you sent about it, the residents themselves aren't really too keen on the idea of Ralph Street becoming one way. But if it's going to be one way or abandoned, whether we fix it or not, that's something they're just kind of have to accept. So I think it's a smart move to try to make it one way now, see what happens with it, and then keep moving forward on what we're going to do about fixing some of the intersections in Plum.
Well, I think in the interest of their safety, knowing now that we know about that street, we need to at least close it, make it one way for this year, and then, do the rest next year if at all possible.
Yeah. My concern with spending the money on it is I just feel there's a lot of intersections in Plum that need updated and addressed for sightline issues and traffic and all that. So if we're going to blow 50, 60 grand to fix an intersection, we might want to do that on an intersection that has more accidents, has more problems, things like that. But this definitely needs to be addressed because that Cycle Street, I don't even come that way to try to make a left or anything off of it because it's too blind.
Mike,
Yes.
could you tell me what was the reason why the resident in the? I know we had talked about it. It's been 2 months since we talked about it or whatever. What was the main reason? Was it just the increase in traffic, or what was the reason why now all of a sudden it became an issue after all these years?
Well, the conversation actually started because the water authority went in, needed to access either a valve or a hydrant there. I can't remember exactly what was there. So they cleaned a little bit of the ground cover that is in front of the house, one of the houses along Leechburg. We went in, the public works crew subsequently went in and cut back a lot of the brush, basically because of the sight distance issue. Well, not basically, because of the sight distance issue. So at that point, the homeowner contacted me about the fact that we did that, and that's how that conversation got started regarding the lack of proper sight distance.
So it wasn't like because of an increase in traffic or due to how they're widening the turnpike and people and residents taking shortcuts using Cycle and things of that nature. It was actually just the homeowner reached out because of the line of sight issue.
Yes.
Okay.
Mike Thomas, if I may, is this? I just need a refresher. Is this the intersection, or this came up because one resident complained about it?
It was the homeowner. The homeowner
is complaining about it, and there's never been an accident there, and the other residents are against it. Is that the same issue?
Yeah, except for the fact that there is one impacted resident that is opposed to closing off Ralph Street. Nobody is opposed to the improving the line of sight. Okay.
Well, there are many intersections in the borough that have line of sight issues.
Correct.
And I think I replied all to my to the email when this was sent out a couple weeks ago, and I referenced the fact that I think this is something we tell the resident that there's been one complaint, there's been no accidents, and there are a lot of other issues we have here, and this is something that we should probably put. My 2 cents, gentlemen, as I said in the email, is this is something that we should tell the resident. This is something we'll look into in the next budget era. I think it's a slippery slope right now if we start throwing 50,000 here, 70,000 here, just because somebody doesn't like their intersection, one person, when there hasn't been an accident. My 2 cents.
Yeah, and I agree with you. There because that's the thing is there's a lot of intersections that have to have more accidents, more problems, more things that would cost maybe more, maybe around what it would cost to do this. We need to do updating of roads and fix intersections. I just don't know if this is the one we start with.
I guarantee you it is not. Just my 2 cents.
Yeah, there's a lot that we need to work with. A lot that we got to talk to the state and county about as well, because some of them are their roads. But
yep.
I think the one-way thing is an easy situation,
right?
Cost-effective to help. And if they don't want that, all right, we won't do it. But that's what we can do for them.
But my point is though, what's it doing? There's no accidents at this intersection. I mean, listen, I don't. Mike, is it semantics? I don't know.
I think part of it is semantics, and the other thing is that it is a really bad bend. So my anxiety brain goes with it is if, say, there is a fatal accident there now, right, and we've been warned about it, if we don't take some sort of action, is there liability involved by at least kind of giving it to, the one-way idea or doing something that at least says we've tried to address the problem within our budgetary means. You know what I mean?
Before we ask our solicitor to weigh in there, I can tell you this right now. Technically, there is no defect of the property. Yeah, there might be a
True.
sight line. There's
True.
no defect. And in liability, insurance liability lingo, if there's no defect of the property, then we're not
Okay.
liable.
Okay, that's good to know. I like hearing that.
Yeah.
You know, from a public safety issue point, making it one way is the safest thing to do and probably one of the most workable solutions without dumping an extraordinary amount of money on it. So, you know,
If that's the recommendation by the professionals, then I'm all for it. That
Right.
doesn't cost anything. And but again, what are we fixing? There hasn't
Right.
been any accidents there.
let it
Well, I don't.
let it go one way. Let it go one way, and let's revisit it. You know, in a couple months. Especially, there haven't been any reported accidents, and it's not like it's a major intersection or a major interstate that there's a ton of traffic. You know, you may be talking maybe 20 or 30 car trips a day, if that. So let's do the one way, and let's see how that goes, and we can revisit it maybe at the end of summer and see how that went. And then, you know, by budget time, if it's not working or we decide to change our mind, we can get it into the budget for next year.
Do we need to put it for a vote for next week?
If you want to move forward with making it one way, then yes, you would need to vote to instruct us to proceed with that.
But right now, it would just be making an agenda item.
Correct. Tonight, it would just be making an agenda item. If you have no interest in it, it doesn't need to be on the agenda next week.
But if we make it an agenda item, the expectation is that we'll be voting to make it one way next week, correct?
At a minimum.
Or it could be tabled.
Right.
Okay, I see.
If there's no harm in putting it on the agenda at all.
Well, let's put it on the agenda. Move on.
Yep, I agree. Agenda item.
Okay,
I
thank you.
agree.
Okay. And then finally, we have a request from EMS, from Plum EMS, as tenants of the Borough building at the Al Franci building. They have made a request, and in the agenda packets, there was a letter from EMS, from Plum EMS. And also, I attached some photos. I hope everybody was able to see the photos. If not, actually, I can pull the photos up as well. You know, the building is roughly 5 to 7 years old, somewhere in that range, maybe 6 years old. You know, the interior of the building, at least in the conference room, the exterior wall is painted block. The interior walls are existing drywall. The floor is carpeted, although it's a tile carpeting. It's a heavy duty industrial carpeting. They've asked that they've asked if council will consider permitting them as tenants. They have to get your permission to make improvements to the building. They've asked for permission to add some sort of drywall or some other sort of surface on the block wall. They're offering to pay for the materials if the borough would consider having our crews take care of the labor. They're also requesting something else, but if you don't mind, I'd like to kind of discuss these two requests independently, because the first one, whether or not council has any intention or desire to agree to this, from the staff perspective, is, you know, if council would like to see this move forward, we will certainly make this happen. Timing wise, it would probably be better if you want to do it to have it happen sooner rather than later. You know, we do still have guys on 2 crews right now, so I probably could get this done assuming I could get the materials. But once this pandemic ban is lifted and we're going to be in the heart of construction season, and this project would have to wait until next winter, which obviously is also not the worst thing either. The second item that they're asking for is they want electrical outlets in the center of the room on the floor. The floors are poured concrete. A lot of the floors have radiant heat in the floors. That's very expensive. We'd be busting up concrete. I really don't recommend that. We can do something from the ceiling down to bring down audio, video cables, Ethernet cables, and power. We can bring a bar down from the center so they don't have to have cords running all over the floor. But staff doesn't feel that it's a good idea to bust up the concrete floor to put in an outlet in the floor itself under the conference table.
Well, I definitely agree with staff. That was going to be my point. I don't have a problem furring the wall out on the block side there and, putting maybe some insulation in there and then putting drywall. That's not a problem. And then we could even run plugs into that wall at that point if you wanted to. If not, the drop from the ceiling sounds like a great, compromise that they'll still get the electricity they want, but it'll come from above instead of from below, because especially knowing now that it's radiant heat, forget it. You can't go anywhere near that concrete.
So does anybody else have any other comment on the two items?
Well, I think to drywall that block wall would be okay to spend money on, because that'll give it a more finished look. But for breaking up that floor, to put a receptacle or two receptacles would be, honestly, to be perfectly blunt, a total waste of money. Because by the time you take up the carpeting, and regardless if it's a heated floor or not, you have to get that conduit in that floor deep enough to put a 90 on it to come up and put a floor box. I've already talked to Brian Maloney. I can meet with him sometime and I can discuss a couple options. Like Mike Thomas said, a power pole that's on that table. We could put it at the one end of the table that's in the room, and it would not be in the way of anything. We could put something in the middle of the table, but there's multiple different things you can do that are way less expensive than tearing up that floor, putting in a conduit, feeding it, because you have to open up a wall to feed it from a wall or another receptacle that's there, and then patch that floor, put the carpeting back on. For the use of one receptacle for the amount of time that they're using this conference room, I think it would be a total waste of money.
I agree.
To agree with that. There's definitely ways to address that problem solution more cost effectively, kind of like what Paul just described. But we definitely should do something about the wall.
I think just furring out with furring strips and putting the 2-inch insulation in, foam insulation in there would be great to give them some, protection against the cold if that wall gets cold in the wintertime.
Well, that block wall, that's an inside wall. So that's back to back, I believe. I believe that's back to back with their computer room.
It's an inside wall in the sense that
Right.
it separates the living area from the garage.
Right. Well, I think I think it's the garage, then it's their computer room, and then that is the conference room. So that's actually a real inside room. But I mean, even if we talk to Brian, if they can reconfigure the table somehow and turn it the other way, I don't know, or put a little L on it, and then we could run something off the wall that they drywall and underneath the table and attach something. So there's multiple things they can do that are way less expensive than breaking up that floor.
So then, do I have council's authorization to work with the EMS to come up with a plan for the wall and some sort of electrical outlet, not involving, however, breaking up the floor, though?
Absolutely.
Yes.
And like I said, I talked to Brian
I
Maloney
definitely
about
agree.
this earlier.
Okay.
I can get down and meet with him, and maybe we could go over some options, and then maybe by having this on the agenda for next week, I might be able to have something on the agenda that they agree to that would be, something we could talk about, and then we could do it all as one thing.
Okay.
Sounds good.
All right.
Yeah,
So this
well,
does
no,
not need to be on the agenda then. Maybe it'd be on the agenda for the May meeting by the time we have a finalized plan with figures, dollar figures, that is, for council to authorize.
Sounds good.
Sounds good to me.
Yep, sounds good.
Okay. So then for the agenda, just so we're clear, we have the 3 planning commission items, and we have the Ralph and Cycle Street discussion. Just those 4 items at this point.
Yeah.
Correct.
Okay.
Yep, correct.
Correct.
Okay.
So at this time, we will be opening up the meeting for our public comment. And Mike, I believe that you've gotten 2 comments on our online forum. I don't know if we received any additional ones since we started the meeting. But if you-
I did. I received 1 additional one, and I've posted it already.
Okay. So go ahead and we can start going through the items for public comment.
So can everybody see the first item?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes,
Okay.
I can see it.
So the first item is from 730 Pine Valley Drive. Please don't forget about the residents on Pine Valley Drive. Now that the weather is warming and more rain will follow, we all live in fear of another flood incident. Thank you.
Well,
So I
we
guess-
certainly haven't forgotten about them. We're still working to get a plan to mitigate some of the water down there, but we haven't forgotten about them by any means.
Yeah,
You know, that's why I'm glad to. Sorry, go ahead, Odom.
No, I was just going to say, both myself and Carlos were down on Pine Valley Drive last month and met with some of the residents. We actually had a discussion about this particular area. The Stormwater Task Force did in our last meeting, which occurred on March 26th. So definitely Pine Valley is on our radar. We certainly believe that there's a couple of things that we can do relative to addressing the flow of water in the vicinity of those homes that are on Pine Valley. And we had several of the folks from the Stormwater Task Force reviewing some of the photos that Carlos and I took of the surrounding area to include some of the issues that were associated with the Dominion Peoples Gas construction that occurred over the course of the last year. So we definitely recognize the issues on Pine Valley, and the task force is going to be working to address those, which includes getting in touch with the folks from Dominion Peoples in order to come through some of the items associated with the work that they did and resolving that to a suitable manner.
Awesome. I'm really glad to hear that because I know every time it rains, there's at least 3 or 4 residents down there that you just tell their anxiety levels are just rising every time it rains because of the water coming back behind their house. I'm glad to see you guys are really on it and really trying to find some solutions for them. That's great because I'm pretty sure the next comment is also from somebody that's on Pine Valley.
Yes. The next comment is from 750 Pine Valley. And it is on the same subject, although the specifics are a little bit different. There are 2 items, a tree and a garage falling into Pine Valley, and some requests for assistance on education to better understand the backflow preventers.
Well, I have you guys here. What do they mean by the backwater valves and overflow? What is that? Is that something designed to prevent issues?
Yeah, we actually talked about that during the Stormwater Task Force meeting. There's a hillside that's in the vicinity of Pine Valley that actually has these water bars, I guess, installed. Isn't that what they refer to them as?
Dave, I
Dave.
think they're talking about check valves.
I believe it's called a backflow preventer.
Yes.
Oh, you're talking about backflow preventers. I thought
That's
they were
what-
talking
yes.
about the area on the hillside. Okay, I apologize.
With the Plum Boro Water Authority, they're the ones that install those backflow preventers. The borough itself doesn't do that, but the Water Authority does, and they installed one at my house after I informed them, they're able to do it over the winter time. And, you know, to the last couple rains, it's worked real well. So I didn't get any water back up through the sewer into my home yet.
But
Dave,
that's actually a good
Yes.
recommendation to have an educational session on backflow prevention installations. And we're still planning on having our public meeting. It's going to be moved to May, just based on the fact that we knew we wouldn't be able to do it in April due to the COVID-19 issues. So that might be an item that we can put on our agenda as far as, you know, doing some type of an educational session on those.
Yeah, that shouldn't be hard at all. I would do that, absolutely.
I believe this particular issue, though, Dave, was they got a backflow preventer installed, and they were still having issues with backups out of the line. And they had a plumber come in and tell them that they were using the wrong type of toilet paper. So I think there's some issues as far as the maintenance, education, you know, just trying to, you know, educate people on what is supposed to be done. And I never would have thought the toilet paper would have been an issue, but
Well,
that's
actually, you're
what they
not
were
supposed
told.
to use them at all during a storm, during a high water situation. And I think, you know, I don't know who put theirs in, but the borough told me that or the water authority told me that when I put mine in, that you can't, during the storm, when the water might be high, you have to not stop using your toilets, but you can't flush them.
Yeah, from what I know about a backflow preventer, the way that it's installed is it can't open the opposite way of the way that it is installed unless you use it in a situation where you're having flooding. So in a situation where they're having water backing up, hence the backflow preventer, it stops the backflow of water from coming up into the house. It is sealed. I think it's physically impossible for that to open that way, the way that it's manufactured. But once, like Mr. Vento said, once you open that seal and you run your kitchen water or your bathroom water to wash your hands, or you flush a toilet or take a shower, you open that seal, and then it can't reseal because the pressure on the opposite side of the preventer is greater than what the house is producing, and it'll never reseal. So I don't think it has anything to do with what kind of toilet paper you're using. I mean, that's my understanding of it from what I've gotten from Mike DeGilio and another plumber.
Mr. Dern, if I may, Bob Mytall here. You have to, when you have a backflow preventer, you do have to be careful about what you flush down. It may not be toilet paper exactly, because most of those do. But if it's anything that, like a paper towel, any kind of, you know, these handy wipes that everybody's using now, they can hang up in there and they do not dissolve. And so it becomes a maintenance issue.
Right. And you do have to maintain them also. You have to, like mine is a little manhole that's in front of my garage doors. And I have to look in there occasionally and make sure that's cleaned out.
Yes, because if something hangs up in there, it's not going to work. It's going to allow the water to come back through.
Correct.
Okay, any other comments on that?
Where is the tree and garage? Where is there? Do we have a location on that, or?
Yeah, that's that's actually the property she's referencing is the one at 730 Pine Valley Drive.
Or 750?
And she's
No,
yeah, she shared
750 is referencing 730.
Oh, gotcha.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and they shared some pictures on Facebook I've seen, but I have not been able to see it up close and personal yet.
So we shared those photos with the task force.
Good. Glad to hear that.
So, yep.
Okay.
Is there anything else on that?
No, I think that's it.
Okay, and then finally, the third comment, and I'll check my email real quick before we move on. We have a comment from 1047 Logan's Ferry Road. They are lodging a complaint about the noise from the Olympus Energy pad, the Midas well pad up on 909.
Hey, Ryan, is this the same resident that reached out to you with the same issue?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, I had told him, thanks for bringing it to me, but one of the best ways to really make sure you're heard is present it to the full council, make sure everybody's aware of it. So I was really glad to see he got on it and went ahead and put it in so everybody's aware of, what his concerns were.
So we can probably reach out to Olympus. They're relatively responsive when it comes to these sorts of things.
And from talking with him, he seemed pretty cool with the idea of under amendable.
I'm not familiar with the zoning section 449 that's being referenced here. Is that applicable, Mike Thomas?
So what they're referencing is the ordinance that limits construction activities from certain times during certain times of the day. However, the problem is that with drilling, if they're drilling now, if they're doing other things, if they're using heavy equipment to move earth or any other type of construction type of activity, then we certainly can tell them to stop those activities. There's a really bad echo here. However, if it's the actual drilling activities, and I'm not going to propose to be an expert on drilling. These drilling activities, once they begin, they cannot stop. We went through this with a conventional well up on Center New Texas Road about 10 years ago. With that same battle with the residents near this is the well actually that's sort of right above on Center New Texas Road, that's right above Plum Creek Church, right across from the cemetery there. We went through this same thing. Our ordinance cannot supersede state regulations regarding mining because that is controlled at the state level. And my understanding of that is that once they begin drilling, they can't stop until they've completed the drill. And so I'd have to look into this. We'll certainly reach out to our contact at Olympus tomorrow and find out what activities are actually going on, and then I can report back to council.
Thank you, Mike. That sounds excellent.
Anything else?
No, were there any other comments that we received for public comment?
No, that is the last comment that we've received.
Okay, then before we adjourn for executive session, I did notice that we had Carlos Escalante on. He typically provides council with an update on the stormwater task force efforts. Carlos, did you want to just run through a brief overview of the last task force meeting?
Sure. Thank you, Dave. So we as you guys know, we have identified several problem areas that we have been looking at. The first one is Anderson Avenue. Staff went out and worked on 3 of the outfalls from the turnpike and has fixed those particular areas. Once again, we talked about the culvert over Miller's Lane being difficult to fix because of the base elevation of the existing culvert. Lowering the elevation would not necessarily add increased capacity for the flows under the culvert. So one of the issues that staff identified, not issues, but one of the solutions that they identified was constructing or installing a controlled flood area, which is a series of weirs or dams within the floodplain that allows for increased flow retention. Those would require a DEP approval. So we're still studying that, looking at that. They are also identified that potential solution in 15 other locations across the borough. So potentially, so we're looking at some of those. Borough staff is looking at that. At Leroy Street, they installed a debris catch system and a trash rack. And they're also looking at potentially acquiring property to construct a small detention structure up on College Avenue. At O Block in Key West, we're still trying to identify some solutions there. We looked at the detention pond that's there. And it's already at peak capacity. We looked at diverting some water from the stream, but that's not going to work either because of the elevation differences. So this was another one of the areas that we looked at potentially installing a controlled flood area. At Nassau Drive, the first phase was consisted of replacing a deteriorated pipe. Borough crews installed 180 linear feet of pipe and one relocated a manhole. The total cost of the project to date is $147,000. It had very difficult conditions, but they got a lot of that done. Phase 2 will be to replace 520 linear feet of pipe. So we can't complete any additional work until easements with some of the property owners are done. So there's also some things that they did. There was a detention pond on New Texas that was not functioning properly. The crews excavated the area, changing the slope to divert standing water back into the detention pond. However, the pond was installed by the developer of Rockland Manor. They have no records of the inspection of the ponds or acceptance of the pond. So we're just trying to figure out what else we can do at that pond. At Ross Hollow, crews removed several tons of sediment that had built up over the years that reduced the capacity. It's typical of the maintenance that's required for these ponds. They also placed a restrictor on the orifice to increase the holding capacity. At Tahoe Drive, crews replaced 2 road crossing pipes that had collapsed and 4 inlets. So we are out there doing some projects. Crews installed 15-inch pipe at Surfside, 30-inch pipe at Key West, and they're replacing all the inlet risers along Rustic Ridge. So things are being done. It may not look like it, but thanks to the staff that has gone out to do some of this initial work. Trying to think of what else there was. We talked about Anderson Avenue, Pine Valley.
I'm
We
sorry.
got
Can I
it.
interrupt you? Can I interrupt you real quickly?
Sure.
Thank you. It's Mike Doyle. You just said that. Correct me if I'm wrong. That the crews are getting out there to do this initial work.
Correct.
I would like to ask Mr. Thomas. Isn't this work we do every year?
Yeah, most of it is just on different, we focus on different areas every year.
Okay. I just don't want the perception to be that this is the first time we've ever done this type of work. We do this every year. And every time, correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Thomas, but every time there is a perceived event coming or a projected rainstorm coming, our crews go out and make sure that all of our catch basins and sewer drains are cleared out. Is that not correct?
Well, not all of them, just the ones that we know are problematic.
Gotcha. Okay.
We have
I
a
just
list
wanted to make.
we have a list of about 60 or so catch basins, culverts, and things that we know are problematic. And we
Okay,
keep
great.
a record of those inspections.
I just wanted to make that clear. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you for that clarification. Appreciate that.
And I just want to say, though, he did say right here from the stormwater tax board meeting, there was tons of sediment built up over the Ross Harlow detention pond. Well, there's definitely certain parts of this stuff that we do every year that's part of regular maintenance. Some of the stuff has not been done as regularly as it needs to be. So I'm very happy to see the task force doing a really good job of making sure these regular, maintenance things are getting done on a more timely schedule. It's really good to see that some of these catch basins and stuff like that are getting cleaned out. So good job, guys.
Yeah, there was also a number of email messages we've been getting to the Stormwater Task Force email that's notifying us of these issues. And when we get notified, we pass them on to borough staff, and then they go and address them. So I think that's one of the, positive outcomes of this is I think we're able to quickly identify issues and resolve them in a timely manner. I know there was one just like last week where we got an email because of a branch that was potentially clogging up a pipe. And we got that through the Stormwater Task Force email system. I sent it over to Mr. Thomas, and he got borough staff right on it, and they removed it. And so, things like that, I think, are, the type of process we want to, make more the norm, as opposed to people not having a good vehicle to use to notify the borough of these issues. And Mike, I think you had also mentioned that we do have a hotline as well that people can call to notify borough staff of these problems when they identify them.
Yeah, we have a system, and actually we prefer that people use that system. We have a ticketing system, a computerized ticketing system, and we ask that everybody call the main number 412-795-6800. And there's a prompt to leave a message with the Public Works Department about an infrastructure issue. So that's a pothole, road collapse, clogged catch basin, whatever it is. We keep those things are logged, and then we have an accurate tracking system that tracks when the call came in, who the job was assigned to, and when it was marked complete. We want to encourage people to continue to use that system so that we don't have repeating systems or competing systems. And also we can make sure that we can track and look back and see if we have, 15 calls for one catch basin, we know there's a problem there. Maybe we need to do something else.
Great. No, that's good information to know. So definitely want to make sure that people understand that system is available for folks to provide, notification of these issues when they identify them. So, Carlos, did you have anything additional for Stormwater Task Force?
No, I just one thing, and I know you touched upon it a little earlier. We had tentatively scheduled a date for April 23rd for the public meeting due to the COVID-19 pandemic. We tentatively rescheduled that for May 21st. That's provided everything gets back to a sense of normalcy, but don't know at this point. So, thank you.
Great, thanks, Carlos. Any other questions for Carlos?
Yeah, I have a question, maybe not for Carlos, but for Mike Thomas, if it's at all possible. Hey, Mike, the picture that was shared to the task force about that tree. Now, from that picture that's in Pine Creek or Pine Valley, I can't determine, is that tree coming from the person's home or the other side of the road onto the person's property?
I'd have to
The other
look.
side of the creek.
Well, keep in mind that, and I'd have to look through our system, but a lot of those properties, they are on both sides of the creek. So the property lines are, don't end at the stream or in the middle of the stream. Most of those properties go up on across the other side of the stream anyway. So it's very likely that, but I'd have to check on it in our GIS system. But my recollection is, because we've looked at those properties a lot in the last year, most of those properties actually cross the stream.
Okay, I didn't know that. Thanks.
Okay, any other items?
Nope, that's it.
Okay, then, if there are no other items, at this point, we will be adjourning for our executive session at this time, and the meeting will come to an end.